Officially live. Welcome to Revolution Network. This is Dr. Jason Dean, your source for health, freedom, and knowledge. And I have a returning guest who is always amazing. He's actually just down the road from me, as they would say, a stone's throw away. And it's the one guy who we're in the same world. We've only met once, but we actually see. It feels like we're like friends already, even though we haven't. I had to go to his facility, but Ken Rohla, welcome back to the show. I appreciate you being on.
Oh man, my pleasure. Anytime, Jason.
I love Ken for so many reasons. I actually found Ken a long time ago via a good friend of mine as well, Patrick Tempone, who does One Radio Network, and just an amazing show. Another freedom fighter out there who is doing a podcast basically every single day. And I heard Ken the first time, and I was like, oh my gosh, this guy is amazing. And so I was really happy to find out he was in my backyard. But that's why I love Ken, because he's so knowledgeable in the area we're going to talk to today. And we were just talking before we came on camera. One of the things we're going to talk about today is 5G, and there's so much, I call it mismarketing out there on people who say they know about 5G, yet they really don't know about it because there's no science yet technically on it. But Ken works in the world of scalar energy, and so we're going to tap into that today, because if you know scalar energy, then you know how radiation works. So we're going to go into that a little bit, but before we do that, Ken loves to drop some great knowledge on us, and he knows that this whole thing going on right now is not exactly as the official story says it is, but also Ken has a lot of inside knowledge. He has people on the inside who know certain things. So, Ken, you've been talking to some military friends. What kind of feedback have they given you?
Well, keeping in mind that it is from a military source and they have their viewpoint, their way of looking at things. But I have a friend who was in a nuclear, biological, and chemical unit and has connections, high-ranking connections in the military, and so he's got a lot of intel about what's really going on, at least from their perspective. And so I've spoken to him for several hours and just told me all kinds of mind-blowing stuff. And so some of that I'll share with you guys. It's more and more it's getting documented in the public news, of course, not in the mainstream news, but in alternative news, of what's really going on, and that, for example, that this COVID bug is a GMO bioweapon. I mean, that's been confirmed by several genetics labs around the world, and of course, the moment that they release their papers on it, they become discredited, and the papers are retracted, probably under threat of death. And that may sound like a conspiracy theory to some people, but when you work in the realms that I work in and develop technologies that can really help humanity and counteract some of these agendas, you do get people showing up at your door threatening to kill you, or in some cases succeeding. And so it does happen, but at any rate, these papers, multiple papers, including from Dr. Luc Montagnier, the French virologist who won the Nobel Prize for discovering the HIV virus, he has confirmed that COVID-19 is a bioweapon with HIV components. So that doesn't just show up by eating bat soup.
Right.
Which, by the way, I've stopped eating all bat soup since this has happened.
Well done. We want you to be healthy.
But the story, it's like HIV and other SARS and West Nile. All of these bugs that you hear about in the news these days are weaponized. And it's not just me saying that. There are people in the know who have exposed it, written books about it. Some people have been harmed and killed over it. But there are books about bioweapons. There's a great book called Bitten, B-I-T-T-E-N, Bitten, about the weaponized version of Lyme disease. And most Lyme disease these days that people are getting sick from, and the reason you're seeing such severe symptoms these days with Lyme is because it's been weaponized. Mm-hmm. And it's gotten loose from labs that were working on it. And also these bugs, I was just reading a book on biowarfare the other day, and it was from an academic university professor who basically researched it and wrote a book about it. And it was hilarious because when you know people like I do, when you talk about the kinds of stuff that I talk about publicly, you kind of become a nexus for people in the know. So I get intel from people in the alphabet agencies, in the military, and other places, and people that are in positions to know what's really going on. And so I'm not like reading conspiracy theories on the internet.
Right.
But this academic book was basically saying that, the United States and the Soviet Union engaged in biowarfare many years ago, but we don't do it anymore, and blah, 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 which is ridiculous. what people need to understand is this pandemic is just the latest episode of biowarfare that's been going on for decades. And it's been used mostly in smaller, isolated incidents where people wouldn't think to recognize it as what it was. But a lot of diseases, for example, like Morgellons disease, as it's called, this really weird disorder where people get lesions all over their body and they get these filaments growing out of their skin, that has been confirmed to be a bioweapon, a cross-domain organism, as they call it. And medical doctors and the medical system in general are not looking for GMO bioweapons, and so it's not a part of their reality, so they don't even think to analyze it from that standpoint. And of course, you need to have very special facilities to analyze the genetics anyway. But at any rate, so this bug is a bioweapon. It's been confirmed. And of course, it's discredited in the mainstream media. But I mean, who are you going to believe, CNN or a Nobel Prize winner? So, so understanding that, we have to take a new approach to maintaining our health. You know, the good old days of just eating healthy and raw food, juicing, whatever. We got to do a lot more than that nowadays to stay healthy, and we can. The cool thing is, I've said this many times. When people hear about these things like the pandemic and 5G and stuff, they get depressed and they get feeling dejected and like, oh, woe is me. Well, I've always said this, and it's very true. When you understand that consciousness creates reality, and consciousness is a form of superluminal light, which these military scientists call scalar energy, which I work with a lot. And scalar energy has polarity. And so the polarities of consciousness that come up with these crazy problems, simultaneously, we always have the solutions being created by brilliant people of the opposite polarity. And so rather than getting afraid, I've seen a lot of people freaking out over this COVID thing. People that friends of mine who should know better, were flipping out. And so it showed me how heavy the mind control programming is on this planet, number one. But also, if you stay out of that programming and victimhood and look for solutions instead of getting into fear, then you can find the solutions and they'll be just fine. There are people like me and you all over the planet who are digging up solutions for all of these kinds of problems, and we will continue to do so. And so you just have to find people like us and look at what we're doing. And then, the bottom line is, does it work? I'm very results oriented, so I don't do a lot of, I don't have time to do a lot of advertising and marketing. People complain I don't email enough.
I get that too.
Yeah, it's true. Because I'm focused on finding real solutions that work. And we have them. We have them for this pandemic, which we'll talk about. We've got them for 5G and other things. So don't get into fear and worry about this stuff. And again, this is not the end of the, biowarfare or other crazy things coming along. I mean, I was just reading about how, Bill Gates and Sir Richard Branson are heavily invested in artificial meat, lab-grown meat, where they basically clone cells. And believe it or not, there's actually a company that is cloning celebrities' cells and selling their meat, their cloned meat.
I saw that.
It's insane. So while the world on one end is going insane, it's like you were saying earlier, it's a shift that is needing to occur to wake up humanity to choose a new path and choose a sustainable long-term path. The way we've been going on Earth is ridiculous. It's not sustainable, and it's not humane, and we've got to change that.
100% agree.
Anyway. So with this intel, some of the stuff that I was told by this friend of mine in the military, first of all, there are two COVID viruses. There's a weaponized version and a non-weaponized version, and that's one of the reasons why you're seeing some people die and some people get over it in a few days. That makes sense, doesn't it?
Right.
I know personally I've been hit with bioweapons and energy weapons on several occasions before for various reasons, teaching stuff the powers that be don't want taught, and also developing technologies that they don't want out that counteract some of their stuff. And so I know what it is to be hit with these bioweapons, actually much worse than COVID-19. One time I was hit with one of them, and I was in bed for 2 weeks coughing up blood. Another time I couldn't walk for a week, and it really scared the hell out of me. But it's basically a big spirit trick to get me to figure out how to deal with this stuff. And then when I figure it out, then I get to share it with other people. So usually, whatever is coming down the pipe from the powers that be, I usually get hit with it a few years before everybody else.
you're the test. You're the test subject.
Yeah. So so there's 2 viruses out there, potentially more. Who knows? But what I was told by this military guy is that the Chinese, the United States developed it in labs in the United States and Canada, and the Chinese basically stole it and weaponized it even more, and they were going to release it in the United States. But now again, this is hearsay, okay? I don't want to get lawyer letters from anybody, but or the Chinese Communist Party on my back. But basically, what I was told is that this bioweapon, they took it in China and then worked on it, and we're going to release it in the United States, but it escaped from their lab and caused a havoc in China that was not intentional. Now, who knows if that's true? Maybe that's not true, but this is what I was being told. Of course, with all of these kinds of planned social engineering events, there are multiple agendas. There's always a profit motive. I was told that this was part of a population reduction program, and that's part of the reason why you see these health organizations and billionaire investors invested in these technologies that will profit from this. It's not just a government or an institution that is behind this agenda. It is multiple people and agendas and institutions. But basically, the way I kind of look at it, because I've encountered things that most people haven't seen, there's also an extraterrestrial component to this, and so that has to be taken into account when you look at why would somebody destroy their own planet and that kind of stuff. It's because there's an extraterrestrial component to this, and so that you have to keep that in mind. In my mind, when I look at what's going on, to me it looks like reptilian versus human.
Yep.
Particularly when you look at some of the supposedly people that are involved in this, having been around reptilians, they're very, very reptile-like. And even this concept of like selling celebrity meat, that's a very reptilian kind of concept. So at any rate, that may sound crazy to people, and that's fine. But we do have to look at a bigger picture here. It's not just, this guy and that guy versus, the U.S. government, or Trump versus the world, or whatever. There are a lot of different agendas going on here, and a lot of times, sometimes somebody will engineer an event, and other people will take advantage of it. Sometimes unplanned events will be taken advantage of. I think Hillary Clinton even said you never want to let a good disaster go to waste.
That's right. No, it's funny. It's funny because the other day I posted something about no matter how much I study and research, I always end up back at things like Dracos and ETs and Tesla and everything else. And it's so funny because literally just, I think it was early this week or end of last week, I don't know, time goes crazy. I don't even know what day it is anymore because I just go to work and help people and do this stuff. But even when they unveiled the Space Force flag, which was I think the other day, and I was trying to tell on my live stream at night that, one, the Space Force has been around for a long time. So why are they now just unveiling a flag? Well, we don't need to go to space to battle China and Russia. Like, we can do that on the ground. That means there's something else outside of here that we're dealing with right now at this point in time, that going forward, obviously we have to win this battle, because this is really this is a physical battle for Earth, but it's also a spiritual battle as well. And a lot of people, it's uncomfortable for them to discuss that, but really, when you start going down that road in research, it actually makes me feel better because I know we're getting to the real source of this actual problem on Earth.
Yeah, absolutely. It may sound crazy to people. I understand. Believe me, I understand. But when you bump into the kind of people that I bump into, and also there are tons of highly credentialed people now in the military and space programs that are exposing these secret space programs with anti-gravity and time travel and extremely advanced weaponry. A lot of it reverse engineered from extraterrestrial stuff. You've got Paul Hellyer, the former Minister of Defense of Canada. You've got Dr. Stephen Greer has interviewed dozens of high-ranking military officials who've all talked about interaction with extraterrestrials. You've got Clark McClellan, who was a space shuttle astronaut, who said that there was actually an extraterrestrial that was a commanding officer on one of his missions.
Wow.
On and on and on. There are tons of people. Corey Goode, Emery Smith, now what's his name? Gary. I forget his name. But anyway, there's a bunch of secret space program whistleblowers coming out, and they can't all be lying and faking it, even if it was a disinformation campaign. I mean, having had personal contact and personal experiences with extraterrestrials, I can see when there's disinformation and when there's not. And there is definitely disinformation out there, but not everybody is lying about this stuff. So we need to keep that in mind with what you see going on Earth. It's like, people say, why would they spread a virus that will kill millions of people, whatever? It's because they don't think like us, number one. They're not all human, number two. And, why did Hitler do what he did? And, of course, there are people that say that never happened. But why would despots, name your despot, Mao Zedong, Stalin, whoever. Why would they kill millions of people? Because they don't think like us. They don't care about us. And many times there is an extraterrestrial component, especially with China. One of the reasons why you see the dragon and snake symbology so much in Chinese culture and Asian culture is because there are some huge reptilian portals over there. And when I've been in China, my wife is from Taiwan, I've been to China and I've been all over Asia, and I can feel energies of places. And I was having some really weird experiences in China in some locations that I believe were some kind of interdimensional portals where these reptiles are coming through. So when you're familiar with how these reptilians think and act, and their lack of emotions because of their birthing process and a whole slew of things, which some of these whistleblowers are talking about, then you look at the actions of, for example, the Chinese Communist Party and politicians and people in power in certain places. It's very reptilian. It's very reptilian, and so there's, in some form or fashion, I think there's this reptilian influence there as well. So getting back to some of the other things that this military guy told me, he said one of the reasons why they use bioweapons now, bioweapons are not very effective weapons for warfare because they're unpredictable. They can come back at you and your own population, and they don't necessarily have the lethality that you might want. And so they're not a really effective weapon for warfare, but they're an extremely effective terrorism weapon. And so you can further political agendas and blackmail countries and do all kinds of things with with these technologies, and that's exactly what you see going on. I remember back in the 70s, there was an article in a newspaper in North Carolina where I lived, where a general in Russia said that very thing, that that biowarfare isn't a very effective tool for warfare, but it's a very effective terrorism tool. And so you can get countries to do what you want them to do simply by threatening to unleash this stuff on them. And in fact, this has been going on for a long time. And a lot of people have been exposing it. If you go onto Amazon and look for books on biowarfare, there's tons of books on it, bioweapons, which, by the way, they're getting harder to find. They're getting a lot more expensive.
Yeah.
But at any rate, if people email me at freshandalive.com, I can send you a list of books on the topic if you're interested in the details of it. My friend also said that chemtrails were being used in combination with 5G frequencies to weaken people's immune systems so that the virus or whatever bioweapon would be more effective at population reduction. And so that put me on a little research path where I discovered, I'm an electrical engineer by education, and 5G technology has to have the specifications for the technology detailed in order for people to engineer it. And so the IEEE, the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers, they list those kinds of specs. And so one of the things I discovered was there are 3 bands of 5G frequencies. So 5G isn't this one nebulous thing that does all these different things. There's 3 different frequency ranges that are used for different purposes, and it's been discovered a long time ago by the Department of Defense and others that the 60 gigahertz, which is in the mid-range, 5G frequencies run from about 6 gigahertz up to about 300 gigahertz,
right,
depending on the application, and most of them are in the mid-range frequency band. So that mid-band, in the mid-range frequency band, you've got 60 gigahertz and 18 gigahertz, which 60 gigahertz has been discovered will block the uptake of oxygen in the cells. So it starves living organisms at the cellular level of oxygen. And of course, we need oxygen to metabolize food and have energy and all sorts of stuff. Oxygen also kills pathogens. So you go shut down the oxygen content of cells, and it's going to make it easier for a virus to attack and hurt the cells and cause damage in the body. Also turns out that 18 gigahertz frequency causes what's called electroporation. Electroporation is where the pores in the cell membrane dilate, become larger, and that allows toxins and viruses to enter the cells more easily. So if you're using 5G frequencies of 18 gigahertz and 60 gigahertz alternating, you can make a pandemic much, much worse. And my military friend said he believes that was what's going on in China, in Wuhan. And of course, he said they were lying about the number of deaths, that there were hundreds of thousands of people in Wuhan alone that had died. And there's video that's come out of China showing that, where a lot of people are being killed also and being sent to gulags in China for exposing the truth. A lot of brave people over there. But at any rate, so we have to understand that to maintain health these days, it's not just about eating the right foods and doing those kinds of things and avoiding EMF. We have to understand that there is a population reduction program going on this planet, and until it's stopped, we've got to take these extra measures to protect ourselves.
Makes sense.
And so, to that end, what do we do? Oh my gosh, all these horrible things. I could go on and on about what this military guy said, but people. I mean, how many people haven't heard the problem, right? It's like everywhere you go, everybody's pointing out the problem. There's more and more details coming out, which is great. But how many people have the solutions, right? So let's get to some solutions for this stuff. And I think we probably talked about some of this on the last time we talked. But I've got some new tools that I've discovered along the way. So we've got some really cool stuff now.
Yeah, take it wherever you need to go.
One of the things that you want to do to avoid any kind of... I'm sorry, I can't hear your audio.
Oh, sorry. I said go ahead. You're wide open. Talk about whatever you want to. I know you want to get into the viral component, and so just fire away.
Okay. Yeah. First of all, conventional germ theory that we've been taught is fundamentally flawed and fundamentally wrong. Basically, and I've heard a lot of people debating and arguing about whether or not viruses and bacteria are contagious and communicable, and some people say they're absolutely not. And there are also people saying, by the way, that 5G frequencies are being used to create the virus in people's bodies, that there is no physical virus that is being created energetically. And we'll get into that in a moment. It is possible with scalar technology to do that, but not with electromagnetic. But at any rate, so first thing to protect yourself is you've got to be eating a diet long term that's not feeding pathogens. I've dealt with a lot of people over the years when I used to do individual consultations, and one of the biggest factors influencing people's health in every case was parasites and pathogens in the body. And a lot of it comes from the typical American diet, which is high in starch, high in sugars, and other things like alcohol that feed these pathogens. So there's kind of like a food chain of pathogens in the body. And then viruses are not a part of the bacterial and parasite food chain, but they do thrive in a low oxygen acid environment in general. Generally, pathogens in the body are anaerobic, and they thrive in an acidic environment. And the people oversimplify the acid-base balance in the body. Dr. Gabriel Cousins has a good article or a good chapter about it in his book, Conscious Eating, people that are interested, to really understand the acid-base balance. Everywhere I go, I hear people oversimplifying the acid-base balance. But in general, in the cellular structures, you've got fluids inside the cells and you've got fluids outside the cells. Those extracellular fluids need to be alkaline in general, not always, but in general, in tissue. And then inside the cells, all your cells are like little batteries. So the nucleus contains what? DNA and RNA, which is deoxyribonucleic acid. So you got acid in the nucleus of the cell, and then the cytoplasm, which is the blob around it, or the area around the nucleus, that's alkaline. And they're separated by a permeable membrane. And so when you have alkaline and acid separated by a membrane, you got a battery. You have electrochemical potential. So every cell in our body is a battery, and to maximize the energy and the vitality and strength of that cell, you need to have the extracellular fluids of the body in general alkaline, and you need to have the cytoplasm alkaline, and you need to have the nucleus acid. And so eating the proper diet, which means predominantly raw food, like 80% uncooked food. And when I say that, of course, I mean plant-based. You could eat raw meat, but it's not a good idea for many reasons, including parasites. But you can get away with about 20% of your diet cooked, whatever. And believe me, I've met a lot of vegetarians and vegans who are much less healthy than meat eaters. So I'm not condemning meat eating per se, or people that eat meat. I don't think it's necessary to eat meat. But I was vegan for like 18 years, and over the course of that, I discovered in my own experience and working with other people that I don't think a vegan diet is sustainable long term. I think we do need some animal fats, which we can get from dairy, fermented dairy and raw butter. Raw, it's got to be raw.
Yep.
If it's pasteurized, then it's one of the biggest carcinogens there is in our food supply. So anyway, proper diet, keeping alkaline in general, and then detoxification, super important. When people talk about building the immune system, all these doctors and everybody says, oh, you got to build the immune system, take vitamin C, take these antioxidants. Yeah, that's a good idea. But also, building the immune system, what it really means is getting toxins out of the body, getting rid of parasites and pathogens, and getting nutrients in, dense nutrients in there. Those three things really are what build the strength of the immune system. And when you really do that, you feel like Superman or Superwoman. I mean, I was in India. I went to India for 3 weeks in December. And, man, I got loaded up with parasites and pathogens and toxins and heavy metals, all kinds of crap. I was just sick as a dog. I got back, and I knew what to do. I got testing and found out what it was. And then I detoxed massively. And I spent $1,400 on quantum biofeedback sessions 2 or 3 times a week for like 6 weeks to zap the parasites and pathogens in my body. And it took all of that, along with supplements that'll kill them off, which we can get into, and energy devices to knock these things back and get rid of it. And then when I got rid of it, surprise, surprise, I could eat crap and I would still be fine. I would still feel strong. The bacterial and viral load in the body and the parasite load in the body has a huge influence on your level of health, because they rob the body of nutrients and they create toxins in the body that knock your immune system down. So, along with diet, it's detoxification. It's huge. And parasite cleansing, huge. Very, very important. I've got programs for doing that. I think you do too. And we've got some great products at our disposal for doing that, so people can contact us about that if they want more information. At least can contact me. Then specific things for killing bio-warfare agents, and I'll just leave it at that, okay? Because people are getting in serious trouble, in some cases arrested, for claiming that they've got a COVID cure. So I'm not going to claim that. I'm just going to say I've had much worse bioweapons in my body, and I was able to get rid of them doing what I'm getting ready to tell you. So, along with diet and detoxification, I've used herbal cleanses for killing off the parasites and pathogens, and then my number one go-to supplement that I'm never without and I always travel with is chlorine dioxide. You hear the news, everybody's talking about hydroxychloroquine, blah, blah, blah. The reason those things work, and they don't work that great, is because they're getting oxygen into the body. But chlorine dioxide is phenomenal at doing that. When it's metabolized in the body, and I confirm this because years ago I had people trying to convince me to use this stuff, because it is not a natural supplement. It is bleach. It's not Clorox bleach. It's not sodium hypochlorite. It's not the same thing. When it's metabolized, it becomes non-toxic in the body, but it looks and smells like bleach. And so when I was introduced to it by some friends at Hippocrates Institute years ago, I was like, there's no way in hell I'm going to recommend for anybody to be drinking bleach, or I'm not going to take it. And they kept, for years they kept saying, oh, you got to try it, you got to try it. No way, no way. Until I got Lyme disease. And then I thought, okay, well, let's try this stuff and see what it does. And in 3 weeks, I got rid of Lyme disease. And so then I had a friend who was a master herbalist, and he had an herb company with 400 different herbs at his disposal. And he had Lyme disease, and he had been trying to get rid of it for years with herbs and salt and all kinds of stuff. Couldn't do it. And I turned him on to chlorine dioxide, also known as MMS, Miracle Mineral Supplement, or CDS, chlorine dioxide solution, which you can get, by the way, at kvlab.com, kilovictorlab.com. Turned him on to it, same thing. He had been struggling with it for years, 3 weeks gone. And that was when we didn't know anything. I mean, we didn't have all the tools at our disposal now. So in addition to that, now we've also got silver, and there are a lot of different kinds of silver products on the market. A lot of them are junk, a lot of them are toxic. And so you've got to make sure that you get, and also, by the way, there's a lot of confusing names. Some people will call it colloidal silver or ionic silver, and they'll debate about which one is the right one. And what I've found is you can't go by what somebody's calling it, because they mislabel things all the time, and they're confused about the nature of what they're doing most of the time. So what you want to look for is silver where you've got either angstrom particles of silver, or you've got only a few atoms per particle, or you've got monoatomic silver, which is the best. Monoatomic silver is individual discrete atoms of silver. It can go anywhere in the body that water can go, and it will kill pathogens like crazy. And so if I get really, really sick and my stomach is upset, then I will do silver, because it tastes pretty much like water. And I use a particular brand of silver that is beyond any other silver I've seen on the market, called accelerated silver, and it has been scalar energized. It's monoatomic scalar energized silver. And there's a new class of supplements coming out. I've been talking about this for years. I call them Ormus homeopathics, or monoatomic homeopathics. But basically, it's been discovered that if you take a monoatomic mineral, an individual discrete atoms of a mineral, put it into water, and then you bombard it with scalar waves of the proper frequencies, those elements will hold the frequencies and rebroadcast them outward, because it changes the atomic structure of the nucleus of the atoms of the material. And so then they broadcast scalar waves. And so, for example, you can program, we have an iodine, we have a monoatomic iodine on our website developed by a really brilliant person, and it's scalar energized iodine, so it has the anti-frequencies of all known radioactive elements in it, so that it will radiate counter frequencies to radiation in the body and help neutralize radioactivity in the body. So we've got some really advanced technologies now that go beyond the usual supplementation, and we need it because we've got these crazy threats to our health that we used to not have. So anyway, silver is a big one. Accelerated silver is my favorite. Iodine, as I just mentioned, iodine is phenomenal because there's so many uses for it. Iodine was intentionally pulled out of the medical literature maybe 100 years ago because it has so many uses, and it was a huge threat and competition to the drug industry that was emerging in the United States. But iodine is anti-parasitic, it's antibacterial, it's antiviral. Of course, it feeds the brain, it provides iodine to the thyroid, on and on and on. There's just tons of benefits from iodine, and nobody, unless they're supplementing with the proper forms of iodine, are getting enough of it. You want to get monoatomic forms, which is also known as nascent iodine, or like what we've got, scalar energized monoatomic iodine. Iodine's a really big one. And then when you sleep, parasites and pathogens like to regroup in the body while you're sleeping, because even if you're bombarding it with energy devices and supplements and things during the day, when you go to sleep, you're just laying there dormant. So one of the things that I do whenever I'm cleansing or if I get sick is I start taking Oxy Powder Intestinal Cleanse. It's an oxygen-based intestinal cleanser, and number one, it will flush any bug you've got out of your guts a lot faster. You basically take a few capsules before you go to bed, and then when you wake up, you poop like a Russian racehorse. And that stuff, you just take it while you're cleansing, or if you get sick, you just take it till you get better. But it will flood the GI tract with oxygen while you're sleeping and help knock back those pathogens while you're sleeping, so that they won't, they can't regroup while you're sleeping. There's several other supplements. There's one called Microbe Blast, which you can get at Rest and Repair. And all these supplements I'm talking about, I keep them with me wherever I go. I have a first aid kit that I have at my house with all these things, and I've got quantities of all of these things for myself and my family. And then I have a little kit when I travel with these things so that I can take them when I'm traveling, so that if I get sick, I can knock it out before it even gets going. And actually, I will take it preventatively before I travel, while I'm flying on a plane, and then when I get off the plane, I'll take some of these supplements for a few days just to keep anything from popping up. And it works really well. And also, the masks that are getting out really popular, I've been flying with a mask for years because I know what's in those planes. And also, by the way, those planes are being sprayed down with chlorine bleach to kill off infections, right? It's a ridiculously stupid, toxic thing to do. They could just ozonate those planes and kill any pathogens in them non-toxically, but of course they don't have that knowledge, and so they spray them down with bleach. And then people are getting sick, very sick, from the bleach that's left over in the planes. As a matter of fact, I had a friend who nearly died from that years ago because she didn't know what was going on by the time she finally figured it out. Very sick.
I'm actually flying this weekend, actually.
Yeah, I'm supposed to go to Bosnia soon, but that's all been canceled. So I do fly a lot, but lately I'm not. But at any rate, with the masks, there's a company called Cambridge Mask that has these really nice, comfortable cloth masks that have charcoal and silver embedded in them.
Oh, wow.
And so they're wonderful. So I fly with those. They're very comfortable. On a 14-hour flight, it's like wearing a mask gets really old. But those are pretty comfortable. Of course, right now they're back ordered for a few weeks. They used to sell them on Amazon. I don't know if you can still get them there, but the company is out of the UK. It's called Cambridge Mask Company. And there's others. But one of the things you can do, by the way, is you can take whatever mask you've got and you can soak it with accelerated silver or some other ionic silver and let it dry out, and then that will help kill pathogens. So when I travel, if I'm wearing that thing for 14 hours on a flight, when I get done, I wash it really well, and then I soak it in silver and let it dry out. And you can really tell, you can smell that silver in it, the accelerated silver.
That's pretty cool information. That's one of the reasons I love having Ken on. He is he's an encyclopedia of knowledge, and it's so funny because once you hear Ken, you will never come back from this rabbit hole because you're going to learn information that's so fascinating. He's like we are. We travel with things that no one else would probably travel with from a supplementation standpoint. We cover everything across the gamut for not only ourselves, but our daughter as well. And so we're constantly on top of everything and understanding exactly how it works and all that different stuff. And I wanted to ask you a question regarding the chemtrails because. Okay. And this plays into it. Go ahead.
Before we get to chemtrails, can I mention one other thing in this arsenal of COVID protection? And this is very, very important. And I probably mentioned it before on your show, but we've got some new tools now for doing this. One of the huge things that has been extremely helpful for knocking back these pathogens when I've been hit with bioweapons or just getting a regular flu or whatever is these energy devices, quantum biofeedback devices, which I know you're familiar with, like the QXCI Skio and the Indigo and the Ductor and the Life System. Those are some very expensive machines, typically cost $20,000, $30,000 and take years of training to master, so you really have to go to practitioners for those. And I'm lucky, I have a practitioner here in my area. But also now the great thing is there are some of these machines are coming out now that are portable, pocket-sized, and very relatively inexpensive. I wouldn't say they're inexpensive. Some of them are as cheap as $160, but there are portable pocket-sized Rife machines, which are scalar energy devices that you can carry with you, and they will put out scalar frequencies that can do everything from killing pathogens in the body to detoxifying the body to accelerating healing and on and on and on and on, protecting against EMF, etc. So I don't have name brands of those on the top of my head, but if people email me at freshandalive.com, we can tell them which specific devices that I've used and tested and like and where to get them. And then there's a new one that I'm getting ready to evaluate right now, which I'm really excited about, called the Healy, Healy. And it actually is a pocket-sized Skio in a box. I mean, it's like this device. It's a skater device that links to a cell phone app, and you, just like with quantum biofeedback with the Skio, you put straps on your wrists and I think your forehead, and then they're like electrodes that pick up your signal, and then that connects to this little scalar energy signal generator, and then that is linked via software, via Bluetooth, to a cell phone app that can analyze you and then see what you need, and then program the skater device to emit those frequencies, and then it will adjust as you get better. It will adjust the frequencies and give you what you need. And so it's basically like having a Skio session or a eductor session in your pocket all the time. And it's absolutely amazing. I mean, this is like game-changing technology. They're pricey. The high-end version of this is like $2,500, and I think right now they just had a sale on it, so I got the $2,500 one for $1,000 off, and I'm going to be evaluating it. From what I've heard from friends, this sounds like a very, very promising device, not just for killing off pathogens in the body, but also protection against wireless technology of all kinds, and many, many other things. It's kind of like having a doctor in your pocket. It's amazing technology. So I will be teaching and talking more about that, in coming weeks and months. I'm still evaluating some of them, but that is definitely something that we're going to need with 5G coming on board.
That sounds completely amazing. Yeah, I mean that's phenomenal. There's two more topics I want to talk about. So we'll do this in like about a 10-minute span here, so we can be efficient. The first one is a little bit of just summary behind chemtrails and how you're actually able to control those from a standpoint of not be affected by it, essentially.
Okay. Well, how much should I tell? I developed a technology that will clear air pollution out of the atmosphere for 75-mile radius.
I have one.
Doesn't matter what kind.
And I have one, and it works well.
Yeah, and we've had some testimonials from some pretty interesting people. I can't name names, but let's just say some famous people who are in the healthcare field. And then also recently had a doctor who lives in, I think you actually probably saw this, him talking about it, this doctor who lives in Puerto Rico, and when they got hit by the hurricanes, he had one of my devices and he didn't get any damage.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so anyway, I developed this device. It's on our website. It's called the Home Shield, and we sell it as a whole house sleep aid and an EMF protection device. It puts out a large field that reaches out about 75 miles for various purposes, but within about 100-foot radius, and really it's larger than that. But I, unlike a lot of people that are putting out these EMF devices out there and lying about the range and the capabilities of them, I prefer to be conservative with what we say about it. So I'm not making any claims, for example, about 5G protection, even though I know that we've got some of the strongest protection for that kind of stuff. But we can't make claims about it because 5G isn't rolled out completely and we can't test it. So anybody that's making claims about their device protecting against 5G is lying, because you can't test it yet. There's little pockets that you might be able to do a little bit of testing on, but so I don't make claims about that. But at any rate, we've got this device, the Home Shield, is really for whole house EMF protection. It improves sleep. It was really originally designed for sleep, and it will improve the weather and clear air pollution out of the atmosphere for 75-mile radius, including chemtrails. And so if people are interested in that, they can contact us for more information about that. And I had death threats over it. My wife and I had to go into hiding, and I've That's happened to me before. Back in the 90s, I worked with free energy technology and had friends murdered and stuff like that. So this is the kind of risk you take when you're working with advanced technology that goes against the agendas of the elite on this planet.
It's fascinating. It's such a messy system. Real briefly, do you know anything about the satellites with Elon Musk and everything that are being sent up? I mean, so Elon is playing the fence right now. He's tweeting out that he's being red pilled, but we don't actually know if Elon is a good guy or a bad guy. Do you know anything about the satellites at all?
Well, I live about you and I both. We live about an hour away from Kennedy Space Center, and so I watch space news quite a bit because I keep up on all kinds of technology. And SpaceX has petitioned for a total of about 42,000 satellites to be sent up, and they're sending up about 60 per rocket every other week. And they've been doing that through the whole pandemic. They didn't slow them down one bit. My impression is that Elon Musk originally, I think he really wanted to help humanity, and I think he's being manipulated, or he's just given up because the things that I see coming out of his mouth and the things that he's doing, unless there's something hidden going on to benefit humanity, which I kind of doubt. I don't think in general that what he's doing is good for humanity. There are some people out there who are saying that the Starlink system that he's putting up will allow us to have global communications, but not the damage that 5G creates. And it's possible because I know from personal experience the existing cell infrastructure on Earth, the cell tower infrastructure, it already has military scalar technology on it. Mm-hmm. That's a whole other topic for discussion, but I've had confirmation of that personally. And so I would imagine the same thing is going on with 5G. A lot of these things that people are attributing to 5G frequencies are really scalar weapons on these satellites and towers. With Elon, I don't really trust what he's saying.
I have told people basically that, I personally feel like he watered down the Tesla name, because Tesla is more than just a car company. Nikola Tesla was an absolute, a genius, probably not even from here. And so to bring Tesla down to a logo on a car does not give Tesla credit for what Tesla really was. And so for me with Elon, he has to do a whole lot more to prove that he's actually looking out for the better of humanity and not AI and everything else. And so I've kind of just been sitting on the fence with it, saying, I don't know which way he's going, so I won't have an opinion on it necessarily, but I hope he comes over to the good side.
Exactly. Well, the fact that he's promoting these AI brain implants, what does that tell you right there,
Right.
That is a heavily reptilian technology, if you listen to some of these secret space program whistleblowers, I was told this directly by some reptilians, but AI is banned in most extraterrestrial civilizations because in every case it winds up trying to take over biological organisms. So, anybody proposing AI beyond limited AI is probably not. They're either ill-informed or they've got nefarious agendas.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. My last question for you, and you can answer this however you'd like to, but I've gotten this question so many times over the last month because I also will speak out on the ET thing and everything, and we'll go into this deeper on another episode, obviously, but we have a lot of people battling the fact that they might be spiritual, whether it's Christian, Catholic, Jewish, whatever, and that and the ET thing does not necessarily align with the belief, or it concerns them because it might be something very evil. And I personally don't think that way. I believe you can have your faith, and I believe you can believe that there's a lot of different stuff out in space, and it's definitely affecting our planet. But what have you ever said about that world, just from your standpoint? Because I know the spiritual experiences you've talked about, but we can't just throw everything out. Sometimes we have to unlearn things to learn how our planet really runs.
Right. It's interesting. I asked these reptilians that I encountered if there was a God, if God existed, and they said yes, that they called it prime creator, but there is an intelligence way beyond us, and they don't even really know the nature of it because it's so much bigger than us. I've always said, for us to understand a God is like an amoeba trying to understand a 57 Chevy. We don't have a frame of reference to even do it. And so we make up these stories around it, and of course I have had religious people, threaten me and, say that I'm evil and, or that I'm worshiping the devil or whatever. And I understand that because, quite honestly, a lot of these traditions talk about, when they talk about devils and things like that, a lot of times they were talking about these extraterrestrials, these reptilians in particular, and the snake. I mean, think about the snake in the Garden of Eden. So, if you think about 2,000-3,000 years ago or more, if you look back in China, like my wife is Chinese, these traditions go back thousands of years. And when you had a population that wasn't technologically advanced, how are you going to convey to a Stone Age civilization that there's these ETs and flying saucers and stuff out there, or there's something that's affecting them from space? Well, you have to use parables, and so that's what a lot of religions are based on, parables. And some people take them literally, and some people don't. But the bottom line is the military and the space programs that know all about this stuff and are having interaction with these ETs and have a much bigger picture of the universe, they are releasing slowly this information so that people won't blow a fuse. Because just look at the announcement of a pandemic and look how people are freaking out everywhere. And so you can imagine if they just released all the stuff that they know about extraterrestrials and the thousands of different races that we're interacting with, and on and on and on, yeah, people would blow a fuse and flip out. And so it's going to be doled out little by little. So that's kind of how I view it.
Well, it's interesting because to General Mike Milley, so he's the head of, I believe, the Joint Chiefs. Basically, he's a head of the entire military, giving President Trump, obviously, the advice from a military standpoint. And the fascinating thing was, there's actually a YouTube video out there where he is, I think, speaking to a graduation ceremony or something like that. I don't even know if it was supposed to be recorded, but it's actually him. And he talks about, literally, we're battling little green men, and we're battling cyborgs, and we're battling, and you can go to YouTube right now and probably actually find it, but he on camera, and it's a close-up, it's not like this blurry image of him, it's not really him. No, it's a close-up. He is talking about battling underground in the tunnels with ETs. He's talking about battling he literally says that out of his own mouth, and the fact that this is what you're coming into when you're coming into the military. You're not just battling against another country if we have to go to war. You're battling against actually what's called the secret silent enemy that's underneath or above or whatever it is. And so it's really out there. It's more of just, I always tell people, it's something you have to be willing to confront and look at, because there's a lot more to this world than you can ever imagine.
Right. Yeah.
It's very...
I 25, 30 years ago, I met Al Bielek, who claimed to be in U.S. government time travel experiments, and later I actually confirmed. I wound up meeting him, and he needed help because of the damage the time travel was doing to him, and so I was working with him. And so I kind of confirmed that he was really time traveling and stuff. And one of the things that he said that I had a hard time wrapping my head around back then was that we were having these underground wars and underground tunnels and caverns. And I thought that, it was man-made tunnels that we had made, but now I believe it's these huge, the planet is like a honeycomb of caverns and tunnels and deep underground stuff where there are different kinds of beings that live there, human and otherwise.
Yeah, it's a very fascinating world, and we're gonna have to go into that in another episode, because we could probably talk on that all day, and you and I got to get together. We'll have lunch over that, because that's gonna be an interesting conversation. But where can everybody find you? Obviously, Ken, because you have amazing products, you have amazing information. His website is a wealth of content. Where can they find you? I know you're not necessarily on social media, because they do lovely stuff to you, just like they're starting to do to me, but give them the sources where they can go look you up.
Yeah, Google, YouTube, and social media have been blocking my content, so you won't find it there much at all. But if you go to freshandalive.com, that's my main product website, and we've got educational information with the products. And then my blog, freshandaliveblog.com, is where most of my educational material is. But going forward, I'm creating a private membership site where I can give out real information that I can't give out publicly, and tell the truth about what our products can do and other people's products. I'm not just focused on what I'm selling. If somebody else has something better than what I've got, I'll tell people. So, but in order to do that, you have to understand, I've not only had death threats, I've had threats to shut my company down and all kinds of stuff. So we've got to go into the private domain. So I'm only going to be disseminating, really juicy information to my private membership. So folks should go to freshandalive.com and get on my mailing list, and they'll be notified when that's live.
Awesome. I appreciate it. I will be one of the first ones on that membership site. You don't have to worry about that, because he is again just a wealth of knowledge. But Ken, I appreciate you being on. I'll be bringing you back, of course, because everyone's asking for you already. We have tons of people on here, and I appreciate all your information. Keep doing amazing work and inventing all this awesome stuff, but I appreciate you being on.
Likewise, Jason.
Absolutely. Have an amazing day. Dr. Jason Dean, Revolution Network with Ken Rohla. Do me a favor. Please spread this far and wide, because as I always say, and as Ken agrees, the more we get this information out, there are so many more people that need to hear this, because in reality, yes, we're waking people up, but it is still a small part of the population. And we win this whole battle if we keep educating, because education rises and raises consciousness, and that's how we win this battle. So spread this far and wide. Let people know Ken's information out there. If you get someone like Ken talking to people out there, we can right this ship really quickly. So have an amazing day, everybody. Go to YouTube, Twitter, Facebook for myself, as well as podcasts. This will be out immediately. And then go to freshandalive.com for Ken. You guys have an amazing day. Take good care of yourselves. Be healthy, be well, and protect yourself at all costs.